My sister disappeared 8 years ago. Last week, she came back with 2 kids and no explanation. I still don't know how to start this. Maybe there's no clean way to tell a story like this. All I know is that my sister, Emily, vanished 8 years ago without a trace, and a week ago, she showed up on my doorstep with 2 children and a suitcase, acting like nothing had happened. Before she disappeared. Emily was my younger sister by 3 years. If you asked anyone in our small town, they'd tell you she was the life of every room, loud, funny, impulsive, always chasing the next big thing. I was the quiet one. The steady one. Our parents split when we were teenagers. Mom got custody, and Emily took it hard. She bounced between bad boyfriends, dead-end jobs, and constant drama. I loved her, but loving Emily meant always bracing for impact. In her mid-20s, she finally seemed to get her life together. She got engaged to a guy named Ryan, started working at a daycare, and talked about going back to school. Then one morning, she just didn't show up for work. Didn't come home. Didn't answer calls. Within 24 hours, her phone was disconnected. Within a week, police were searching nearby woods and rivers. Within a month, she was gone, not just missing, but erased. 8 years of not knowing. Those 8 years hollowed me out. Every phone call from an unknown number made my stomach drop. Every news report about a body found made me freeze. Mom didn't handle it well. She drank more and more until her liver failed 3 years later. Her last words to me were, "If Emily ever comes back, tell her I waited." Dad died a year after that, heart attack. I think the grief broke him too. After that, it was just me. Me and the memory of my sister, the ghost who never came home. Eventually, I stopped looking. Stopped hoping. You can only live with heartbreak for so long before it becomes a part of your DNA. The knock on my door. It was a Tuesday night, raining, quiet. I was watching TV when I heard a knock. Not urgent, not frantic, just steady. I opened the door and froze. There she was. Emily. Her hair was longer, darker. She looked older, tired, but unmistakably her. And beside her were 2 small kids, a boy about 7, and a little girl maybe 5. Before I could speak, she whispered. "Hey, big brother. Can we come in?" I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. She smiled, the same shy smile she used when she got caught doing something stupid. "I know it's a lot. Please, just, let me explain." But she didn't explain. Not that night. Reunion and shock. I made her tea. The kids, Ben and Sophie, curled up on the couch, instantly falling asleep. Emily sat there, hands wrapped around the mug, eyes darting around my living room like she was afraid of something. I finally said, "Where have you been?" She looked down. "It's complicated. 8 years, Emily. Mom died waiting for you. Dad too. You just disappeared, no calls, no letters, nothing. You owe me something." Tears welled in her eyes. "I know. And I'll tell you everything. Just, not tonight." I wanted to scream, but I didn't. I let her stay. She tucked the kids into the guest room and crashed on the couch. I barely slept. Every sound in the house made my heart race. Part of me was terrified she'd vanish again by morning. The story she told me. The next day, she finally talked. She said she'd left Ryan after finding out he was cheating. She planned to stay with a friend out of state, but something happened. She wouldn't say what. All she said was that she had to start over. "I made mistakes, Dan," she said. "Bad ones. But I was scared. And by the time I wanted to come home, I couldn't." She said she moved around a lot, working odd jobs, sometimes sleeping in shelters. Eventually, she met someone, the father of her kids, but refused to say his name. He wasn't good to me, she said. But I got out. I'm safe now. That's what matters. I wanted to believe her. I really did. But nothing added up. Strange things. From the moment she came back, weird things started happening. She jumped at every knock on the door. She refused to use her real last name when enrolling the kids in school. She kept her phone off most of the time, said it was safer that way. One night, I woke up around 2 a.m. to voices in the living room. Emily was on the phone, whispering angrily. I told you to stay away from us. We're done. When she noticed me, she hung up fast and muttered. Wrong number. But I saw her hands shaking. The kids. Ben and Sophie were sweet, polite kids, but quiet. Too quiet. They never talked about their dad. They flinched at sudden noises. Sophie had a scar behind her ear that looked like it came from stitches. Ben wet the bed a few times and begged me not to tell his mom. Once, when I asked what kind of games they liked, Sophie said softly. We're not supposed to make noise after dark. That chilled me. The letter. A few days later, I found an envelope in my mailbox. No return address. Inside was a single sheet of paper with 2 words. She's lying. That was it. No signature. I showed it to Emily. She went pale and whispered. You didn't see who left it? No. What's going on, Emily? Nothing. Just, old ghosts. Then she tore it up and threw it away. Police and paperwork. I eventually called the police, not to report her, but to confirm something. When I told them my missing sister had returned, the officer sounded stunned. He said. That's incredible. We had her classified as presumed deceased. I asked if they could close the case. He said they'd need her to come in and verify her identity. When I told Emily, she panicked. No. Absolutely not. They can't know where I am. Emily, what are you talking about? You didn't do anything wrong. You don't understand, she snapped. You can't tell them. And that's when I realized. She wasn't just running from her past. She was running from someone. The stranger. A few nights later, I saw a dark SUV parked across the street. Didn't think much of it until I noticed it was there the next night too. Then, one evening, I came home to find the front gate open, and Sophie's doll lying in the driveway. Emily freaked out, locked the doors, and whispered. He found us. I demanded answers. Finally, she broke. The truth. She told me everything. The man she'd been with after leaving Ryan, the father of her children, was named Ethan. At first, he was charming. Then he became controlling. Violent. He cut her off from friends, tracked her phone, threatened to take the kids if she ever left. When she tried to go to the police, he laughed and said, "You think they'll help a runaway with fake papers?" Because by then, Emily wasn't Emily anymore. She was living under a false name, hiding from debt collectors, old warrants for unpaid fines, and a man who claimed to own her. Eventually, she escaped, fled across state lines, changed her name again, and kept moving. I didn't come back because I was ready, she said. I came back because he's getting close again. I thought maybe, you could help me disappear for good. I sat there in shock. My little sister, who'd always seemed invincible, was begging me to help her vanish again. Decision. I didn't know what to do. Part of me wanted to call the police immediately. Another part remembered how terrified she looked, how broken those kids were. So I helped her. We got prepaid phones, new SIM cards, switched her car plates. I let her use a spare ID from when I worked in maintenance. For a while, things seemed calm. He found us anyway. A month later, it happened. I was leaving work when I noticed the same black SUV in the parking lot. When I got home, the front door was open. The kids were hiding in the closet, crying. Emily was gone. There was a note on the counter. Don't call the cops. I'll fix this. I did call the cops. They searched, but found nothing. For 3 days, I didn't sleep. Then, just as suddenly as before, she came back. Bruised. Shaking. But alive. He's gone, she whispered. We're free. I asked what that meant. She just said. Don't ask. Aftermath. It's been 4 months since then. The SUV hasn't come back. The kids are in therapy. Emily's working under her real name again. But sometimes, when the phone rings, she freezes. Sometimes, I hear her crying at night, whispering. He'll never find us again. And sometimes, I catch her looking out the window like she's not convinced of that. Mom's grave. Last week, I took her to Mom's grave for the first time. She brought flowers and stood there for almost half an hour, silent. Then she said. I'm sorry I made you carry all this alone. I told her. You're here now. That's what matters. But deep down, I knew it wasn't over. You don't survive 8 years in hiding without leaving scars, or enemies. Today. Emily and the kids still live with me. Ben started calling me Uncle Dan again instead of Mr. Sophie sleeps through the night now. We're building something like a normal life. But every time I lock the door, every time I hear tires crunching outside, I wonder. What happens if he comes back? Part 2, the truth my sister tried to bury. The days after my sister's return felt like living in a dream, or maybe a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. At first, I was just grateful she was alive. I cooked for her kids, bought them clothes, and even set up an old room in my house for them to stay in until she figured things out. But the longer she stayed, the more cracks began to show. Her oldest, a boy named Liam, around 10, kept asking about Grandpa Mark. Our dad's name was Mark. But he died 3 years after my sister disappeared. When I told Liam that, he looked confused and said, "That's not right. We visited him before we came here." I froze. That night, I asked my sister, "Where have you been, Sarah?" She stared at the floor for a long time before saying, "It's complicated. I just had to get away." That wasn't enough. Not after 8 years of silence. Not after Mom died thinking she'd been murdered. Not after police dragged the lake behind our house looking for her body. After a few weeks, my patience ran out. I started digging, literally. I went through her old stuff in the attic, journals, photos, and one dusty box labeled 2008 to 2016. Inside were letters. All addressed to someone named David. None were sent. They talked about running away, about finally being free, about someone dangerous watching the house. The last letter, dated a week before she disappeared, said, "If I don't come back, don't let them find the kids. He'll never let me go." That line hit me like a punch to the chest. The kids. I stormed into her room that night. "Who's David?" I demanded. "And what did you mean, don't let them find the kids?" Her face went pale. She told me to keep my voice down. Then she broke down crying. She said David was her ex, an abusive man she'd met when she was 21. She got pregnant, and when she tried to leave him, he threatened to kill her. So she ran. Changed names. Moved states. For years, she'd been living under an alias. Then, when David went to prison for assaulting someone else, she decided it was safe to come back. I didn't know what to say. Part of me was furious she hadn't called, hadn't told me, hadn't trusted me. Another part of me felt sick thinking about what she must have gone through alone. But the hardest part came next. 2 weeks later, I got a call from a local detective. He asked if I knew a woman named Sarah Lee. That wasn't my sister's legal name. That was her alias. The detective said she was being investigated for identity fraud. That her husband, a man named David Lee, had recently been released from prison and filed a report claiming she'd kidnapped his children. My stomach turned. I went home, and when I confronted her, she didn't deny it. She said, "He found us." I thought we had more time. The next morning, she was gone again. So were the kids. That was 6 months ago. I get postcards sometimes. No return address, just the kids' drawings on the back, a little house, 2 stick figures, and a third one holding their hands. Sometimes I think she's telling me they're okay. Sometimes I think it's her way of saying goodbye. I don't know which hurts more, losing her the first time, or realizing that this time, she's gone for good. Edit. It's been almost a year now. I still check my mail every day, still look for her face in every crowd. People tell me to move on, that she made her choice. But deep down, I think I know the truth. She didn't run from us. She ran for them. And maybe, that's what love really looks like, the kind that hides, that sacrifices, that disappears to keep others safe. 5 years later, I finally found my sister again. 5 years. That's how long it's been since Sarah vanished the second time, leaving me standing in her empty room with nothing but 2 small beds and a postcard with a child's drawing. I told myself I'd stop looking. I told myself that maybe she deserved peace. But every time I saw a woman with her hair, or a kid with her son's blue eyes, my chest tightened. I couldn't stop. For a while, I hired private investigators. They found nothing. I posted on missing person forums, Facebook groups, Reddit threads, nothing. It was like she disappeared into smoke. Then, one afternoon, I got a call from a woman in Arizona. She said, "I think your sister's been volunteering at our shelter under another name." My heart nearly stopped. The next day, I was on a flight to Phoenix. When I arrived at the shelter, the air smelled like dust and sun-baked asphalt. The receptionist looked at me warily when I asked for Sarah Lee. I told her I was family. She hesitated, then disappeared into a back room. A few minutes later, someone stepped into the hall. It was her. She looked older, thinner, tired, sunburned, but it was her. My sister. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Then she whispered, "You shouldn't have come." I wanted to yell, to demand answers, to tell her what she'd put me through. But instead, all I said was, "You disappeared again, Sarah. You left me with nothing." She looked down. I know. I had to protect them. We sat outside on a cracked bench under the blazing Arizona sun. She told me everything. After she fled our hometown, she moved constantly, small towns, shelters, even farms. When her ex, David, got out of prison, she changed names again, started using Ann. But no matter where she went, she always felt watched. When she saw a strange car outside the kids' school one morning, she panicked. Packed everything and vanished before sunrise. That was the last time she'd written to me. But this time, things were different. She reached into her bag and pulled out a small photo. It was of Liam and Emma, her kids, smiling in front of a modest house. "They're safe," she said. "They live with a family now. Friends I met through the shelter network. They go to school, they have friends, they don't have to hide anymore." I stared at her. "You gave them up?" She nodded, eyes filling with tears. "It was the only way to keep them safe. I'd rather they hate me than live in fear." I didn't know what to say. I wanted to hate her for that choice, for running again, for cutting me out, for never trusting me to help. But seeing her there, exhausted and shaking, I realized something: she wasn't the reckless sister I used to know. She was a mother who'd sacrificed everything, her freedom, her name, her identity, for her kids. She looked at me with trembling hands. "Please, don't tell anyone you found me. Not even the police. He's gone now, but the people he knew, they're still out there." I wanted to argue, but then I saw the scar along her neck, long and pale, like a knife wound that never healed right. I didn't ask how she got it. I didn't need to. We met in secret for the next few days. Every morning, she brought me coffee and old photographs, proof that she was alive, proof that her kids were okay. One night, as the desert wind howled outside, she said softly, "I want you to meet them again someday. When it's safe." That word, someday, stuck with me. It wasn't a promise. It was hope. A few months later, she disappeared again. No note this time. No postcard. Nothing. But 2 years after that, on my 40th birthday, a letter arrived. It was postmarked from Colorado. Inside was a photo, Liam and Emma, now teenagers, standing beside a woman I barely recognized at first. My sister. Healthier. Smiling. The letter was short. "They know who you are now. I told them everything. They want to meet their uncle. Love. Sarah." I cried so hard I could barely breathe. Last month, I finally saw them again. We met at a diner off a quiet highway. Liam was taller than me now. Emma had Sarah's eyes. When Sarah walked in, I didn't recognize her at first. She had a light in her face I hadn't seen in 15 years. We talked for hours. About Mom. About the years she lost. About everything she'd done to keep them safe. When it was time to leave, she hugged me tight and whispered, "You were the only person I ever trusted to find me." I don't know what the future holds for her or the kids. I don't know if she'll stay this time. But for the first time in a decade, I finally feel like my family is whole again, even if it's a different shape than before. And when I look back on all the pain, the silence, the running, I realize something. Sometimes the people we lose aren't gone forever. Sometimes they're just finding the strength to come home.